Okay, moving on. I'm really grateful to Marc Wilcox from Hertfordshire County Council, who's kindly giving up his Saturday afternoons to come along and talk to us about the Hertfordshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy. Someone's been involved a little bit in this, so certainly looking forward to hearing more. And I think for many people, I suspect actually probably won't know much, if anything, about the strategy. So it's a really good opportunity to hear about something that will have a really, hopefully, significant effect on the county's wildlife over the years to come. Marc is Local Nature Recovery Strategy and Biodiversity Net Gain Project Manager. That's quite a mouthful. At Herts County Council, in which he supports the Hertfordshire Nature Recovery Partnership in the creation of Hertfordshire's first local nature recovery strategy. He has worked for the Herts County Council for 4 years. With that, Marc. And over to you.
Thanks very much.
Just slightly watch the microphone there.
Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you for saying my title there. You shaved off probably 5 minutes of the presentation. It's ridiculously long. So I'm going to talk to you about Hertfordshire's Local Nature Recovery Strategy today. Before we actually get into what that is and what that means, all of which we covered for those of you who are intimidated by that very technical sounding name. A bit of context, probably not needed in this room. I expect everybody here is well aware of the state of nature, as we might call it. But here are some key facts that we pulled out from the State of Nature report completed by Herts and the Wildlife Trust recently. They really, I think, make clear the bleak picture, realistically, we find ourselves in with regard to nature, specifically within the county as well. So we've got 13 hectares of heathland left in Hertfordshire now. We also have some good opportunities here, though. We have around 10% of the chalk streams in the world in Hertfordshire. I say opportunity. We have really a responsibility to protect these valuable habitats as they make up such a large percentage of the global chalk streams. An interesting fact in the middle there as well, which really shows why we need something like this strategy, that although woodland has been increasing since the 1970s due to efforts to reforest the county, 35% of woodland species have actually shown decline since that time. Like I say, this is probably not news to the people in this room, and we are aware of how complicated ecosystems are. But in order to get the people, mostly outside this room, on board and working together, make sure we're using resources in the right way, to really prioritise what we do for nature, we need a more strategic approach, which is why we are developing a local nature recovery strategy. So, what's that? You might think we've done that before. We've got plenty of strategies. Surely we've got something like this in place already and have had for many years. We have had similar things before. We do have similar things at the moment. We had the Biodiversity Action Plan, last refreshed in 2006. Some of the local authorities in Hertfordshire as well work together through the Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership and have an existing biodiversity plan. And of course, businesses and societies across Hertfordshire will have their own biodiversity work ongoing. So how is this different? Well, one way in which it's different is the broader focus. So we can look at this by unpacking the name a little bit. Let's skip the local bit, fairly obvious what that means. But nature. I think it's been very propulsive, the inclusion of the word nature here, and not biodiversity. So I mentioned a couple of biodiversity strategies there that have been created so far. What we're trying to do here is look at nature more holistically and as well the further benefits it can offer both for humans and the wider environment within Hertfordshire. So biodiversity will be at the core of this strategy, absolutely, but it will be doing more than that if we do it right. So we'll be looking at how we can improve habitats, improve specific species, as well as deliver wider environmental benefits such as carbon sequestration, improved water quality, improved air quality, and benefits as well directly to humans. So improving access to green space, which we know will improve mental health, especially in those areas where it's most desperately needed. Improving air quality, which is good for nature, also good for humans directly. Let's look at recovery. Another key part here. Previous strategies, admittedly a bit longer ago, tend to focus on identifying the most valuable pieces of habitat, fencing them off, protecting them, and ensuring that they continue to exist. Very important. We still need to do that. Nobody's arguing about that. But we need to do more than that. And this really shows the sort of a change in policy approach there. We're not just trying to protect what we have, we're trying to restore what was there before and create more nature. So identify areas where there used to be something that has now been lost and bring that back. And connect up those fragmented pieces of habitat so that nature can transition through them and grow. And the last word we've got there is strategy, which is a bit of a misnomer, to be honest. And if we were naming this, and I say we as those involved in delivering this, we almost certainly wouldn't call it a strategy, because that sounds a bit boring. It sounds like we're going to make a really long document that's really difficult to read that people aren't going to use. What we actually want out of this is a tool, and I'm going to tell you a bit about that in the next slide. So, park that for the moment. The next point, really important, this is a collaborative strategy for Hertfordshire. These aren't just words. So the strategy is being delivered by a new partnership that's been developed, and I'm going to tell you about in a second, not just by sort of a select few. And over the last 7 to 8 months, we've done a wide range of engagement activities to bring in a wider audience to that, to feed into the process as well. Many of whom are in the room today, and we are very, very grateful for your help. It's also required by law, so as good an idea as we think this is, it's not the idea of the County Council or the partnership delivering this. It is something that's been written into the Environment Act 2021 and has to be delivered across England. So by this time next year, we should have a nature recovery strategy for every county or county-shaped area in England. These strategies as well will also have weight in the planning system. We're still waiting for a bit more information about how that will work, but we do know that local planning authorities will have to have regard to the strategy. And effectively, we do know that means when considering planning applications, when developing their local plans, when carrying out any kind of master planning function, they will have to refer to the local nature recovery strategy and look at what's been identified in it in terms of areas and things to do. And this is really a shift from anything we've had before. We are expecting to deliver a draft in March 2025. It's a tight deadline. I won't lie to you, we've got a lot of work still to do, but we have done a lot of work. And you should be able to see something, probably a little bit before then, you'll start to see a little bit more, but we will have a formal public consultation around March or slightly thereafter, where you'll get to see a draft of the strategy and comment on it. We'll then be publishing later in the year. Just a note, by the way, if you went and looked online about local nature recovery strategies after this, you might wonder why we have the March deadline. Different counties are moving at different speeds on this for a variety of reasons, some of which are sort of where they're starting from. In some counties across the country, there are local nature partnerships that have been able to pick up this task and run with it. That's not the situation we're in Hertfordshire when we started, and effectively we have set up a new partnership to deliver this, so we won't be as quick as some of the fastest counties out there. We did actually see a historic moment last week. The first local nature recovery strategy was published by the West of England Combined Authority. So if you want to go and have a look at what a completed one looks like, by all means have a look at that online. You'll be able to freely access that. Okay, a little bit about partnerships. So, this is admittedly a little bit confusing. I am employed by the County Council, but I'm here today representing the Hertfordshire Nature Recovery Partnership. So this is a partnership that we set up about a year ago, 13 months ago. As I said, it's effectively to deliver the local nature recovery strategy. Areas across England already have local nature partnerships in some places, and they fulfilled this function. We didn't, and we set up a purpose-built partnership purely for this function. So the County Council has a fairly malleable, I guess, role in this. So we are designated responsible authority, which means that DEFRA provides funding to us and task us with setting up and sharing a partnership. But this is not our strategy. It is the strategy of the partnership, and we have been working with them to really get this going. We had some control over who was invited into the partnership and also some guidance from who we should include. We've got a few different categories on there so you can see. So supporting authorities are an authority that is responsible for local planning functions within the county area. It's not the county council. So for us in Hertfordshire, we have 10 districts and boroughs. They count as the supporting authorities. They are involved in the partnership through existing partnerships we have, effectively a two-tier partnership role there. So we have the Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership, of which all the districts are part of, and we have a planning partnership, of which all the districts are part of. So both of those partnerships are represented in the Local Nature Recovery Partnership. I feel I've said partnership too many times there. I'm going to move on from that. We also have central government, arm's length bodies involved in this. So that's Natural England, the Forestry Commission, and also the Environment Agency. We have some local stakeholders as well, which are really key to making sure that this is not just us delivering central government policy, but us really tapping into local knowledge and local skills. One of the key ones, the Wildlife Trust. We also have catchment partnerships, and we have landowners involved as well through a landowner liaison officer. We have several others as well, and this partnership seems to grow actually every few months. We have a new stakeholder added to this. All of which, as I say, are really important to make sure we get that diverse viewpoint from across the county. One thing I do want to mention though is there are definitely some organisations which are not involved in this partnership but I think would like to be involved. You absolutely do not need to be in this partnership in order to contribute towards the local nature recovery strategy. Some of you will know that, as I said, some of you have been involved. If you haven't been involved up to this point and you think you would really like to be, come see me. I've got some leaflets. You can go on our website, you can find out what's happening, you can find out more about how to get involved. Okay, so that's enough setup. What's the LRS? This is a picture here of a piece of map-based software that we use, effectively representing what our finished LRS could look like. I said it's called strategy, but we don't really want to think of it like that. We want to think of it as a tool. So what we're going to get is a map-based tool that will be publicly accessible, will be free to use, and it will function for a variety of uses. There's quite a wide variety of uses that we want it to work for. So it needs to work for planners, for reasons I said. Local planning authorities are going to have regard to this tool, so they need to be able to use it effectively to make planning decisions, etc. We want it to work for ecologists, so they can use it to find key information about the priorities that we set around nature recovery. We want it to work for businesses and other organisations as well, that have funding to use to deliver offsetting or carbon sequestration or nature benefits. Effectively, this will become the go-to tool in the county, which will tell you where you can use that money most effectively. And we want it to work for charities and community groups who are interested in doing volunteering and want to know what they could usefully do in their area to really help tackle the biodiversity crisis. It needs to work for pretty much everybody, so we have quite a task cut out for us. It will really try to answer three main questions. So that is, with regard to nature recovery, what can we do, how can we do it, and where can we do it? And you can group these into the two functions of the LNRS. So the what and the how. We're going to tackle this by developing strategic priorities. So these are effectively targets for what we want from habitats and species, what we want them to look like in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, etc. Also, wider environmental targets as well. So what do we want to happen with flood risk, with carbon sequestration? We will then develop measures, as they're called, so some actions to actually deliver these priorities. So when you go into the local nature recovery strategy, you'll be able to see a target for what we're trying to do and an action for how you can actually get involved locally to deliver this. Some actions will be something you can do at an individual level, perhaps in your garden. Some will be quite large scale that would need significant funding from a business, charity or some other organisation. We're also looking at proposed and ongoing projects. So these won't be sort of explicitly featured in the local nature recovery strategy, but we're interested in finding out what's going on at the moment and what businesses, organisations and individuals want to get involved in. And that's to try and make sure where we've identified a priority, we list the actions that can be taken to reach that priority by aligning them with what's already going on. So effectively, we've already got a delivery mechanism for hitting these targets. That will be key to making them realistic and feasible. The second strand is the where. So in addition to knowing what we need to do, it's really important that we're doing it in the right places, the areas where it can really have the greatest impact. So there's a bit of natural England jargon here. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But effectively, we are looking for areas that have importance to biodiversity, the areas we already know about. So this is our local nature reserves, our national nature reserves, any triple SIs, as well as irreplaceable habitats, so the highest value habitats we have, and our local wildlife sites. So all of these sites will, as default, go into the local nature recovery strategy. They're all sites we already know about, we know they're valuable, they need protecting, they need, in many cases, become more resilient as well. So we are not going to be developing priorities on how to do things with these sites, because they're already typically have management plans and people working hard on protecting them and keeping them valuable. The second category is the category we're much more interested in, and the category in which we're asking for a lot of input into as well. So these are the opportunity areas. This is opportunity in quite a broad sense. There can be opportunities for a variety of different reasons. This might be an opportunity area because it's a sort of a missing link between a habitat here and a habitat here. We can link them up and provide a wildlife corridor. It might be where there used to be something quite valuable, but that's been lost and it could be restored. It might be where there's something that's pretty good for nature, but it could definitely be better if we had some funding and a clear plan about how to improve it. So effectively, we're looking at creation and enhancement of habitat there. So that's what the LNRS will deliver. I've summarised it there, I won't go through it again. It's important to note some things that the LNRS won't do. Firstly, it won't designate new sites. So, nothing that we identify within the LNRS will, because it's in the LNRS, make it become a nature reserve or a local wildlife site. There are already separate processes for how you get a site designated in that regard. This is about broad opportunity for improvement. So there won't be any kind of official protections on sites identified within the local nature recovery strategy. It won't interfere with existing management plans, so I've already mentioned that. Those sites that have designations will carry on being managed as they were, and their there won't be crossover between those and the local nature recovery strategy. But they will be identified in it, so you can, in one place, see where they are. There won't be any enforcement for any action to take place. So this is about working out what we should do and what we could do, but it's not about telling anybody what they have to do. So just because a priority is identified with a piece of land that we could do woodland planting there, for instance, none of the partnership or any of the bodies associated with that are able to enforce that action and make sure that woodland planting takes place. That's up to the landowner themselves and those involved in actually delivering it. It also won't result in site-level costed plans. So what we mean by that is you won't be able to go on this, hover over an area and see exactly, what fencing you need, how much it will cost, how many hours of grazier's time you need, anything like that. This is big picture stuff. There will be some specific actions, like I say, that you will be able to read and get involved in, but it's not going to provide landowners with a complete plan for what they need to do on their land. And similarly, it won't do that for species either. So there will be some specific actions relating to some key species that will be identified in this, but this won't effectively replace any action plans that we already have around species. So where are we now? We've been working on this, as I said, for 13 months. So I wanted to bring you up to speed on the work we've done in that time. I'll focus firstly on the mapping side of it, the where, and then we'll look at the how and the what. So the mapping is probably the more challenging task in this regard. I think it's something that we, something quite new we're doing in terms of what we're mapping, the opportunity areas. We started this process by getting into a room several times and brainstorming about what data we really needed to have at our fingertips in order to identify those opportunity areas. This led to an incredibly long list of data sets that we wanted, in the hundreds. So we took this away, we tried to shorten it a bit, and we came down to a short list of 200 data sets that we thought were key to identifying where the opportunity areas are for agriculture. We then used this to identify for every given habitat type we have what these data sets could provide in terms of information. So could they tell you where there was an opportunity? Could they tell you where there was a constraint? Could they tell you something else that was useful? So for instance, if we're looking at chalk grassland, one data set might be soil types. And we'd be really interested in that because it would show us both where existing chalk soils are, which would be great for creating and enhancing chalk grassland, and where existing clay soils are, because that would tell us that there's a very bad idea to try and create chalk grassland there. And effectively did that 200 times for each habitat type. We then also created some resistance modelling habitats as well. Slightly different, so this looks at how easy it is for one habitat to effectively colonise another. So thinking of woodland and grassland, how easy is it for a grassland, for a woodland to seed and take over a grassland? Where that's fairly easy, that we say there's a low resistance. Where that's difficult, we say there's a high resistance. So it's very easy, and there's no resistance, or very little, for a woodland to move into a grassland. The other way around, there's very high resistance for a grassland to move into a woodland. And this helps us to identify where the greatest ecological opportunities are, or the least cost in terms of resource to establishing different habitats across the county. Finally, the last strand of data that we're pulling in on this is site and project data. So as I said, we're collecting project data to try and align our priorities and make sure we have delivery mechanisms for those actions that we want to take. We're also interested in collecting site information, i.e. information about sites around the county where the landowner or land manager is interested in doing something for nature recovery or already doing something for nature recovery. so that we can identify the key places that are sort of ready for nature recovery action to take place. This information is effectively in the process of being cross-referenced now. That's quite a lengthy process, and we had a really good response to some of the engagement we did around site information. So I'd say we were probably expecting maybe 30 to 40 sites to be put forward as potential for nature recovery in Hertfordshire. We had initially over 300. Once we removed some duplicates, we got down to just under 300, 290 something. That's obviously fantastic. It's great to see so many people interested in doing this and willing to tell us about it. But that does mean that it takes longer for us to then work that through with the resistance and the opportunities and constraints modeling. So that's something we'll be doing now up until Christmas and probably into the start of the new year. The priorities work. So we started this work by initially creating a long list of species of interest for Hertfordshire. So to get this long list, we looked at species on the IUCN list, either at near threatened or above. We looked at the NERC section 41 species, and we looked at species identified as of conservation concern. This gave us a list of about 1,700 potential species to look at, which was, again, way more than we were anticipating and way more than we could include in any kind of strategy or tool like this. We're looking to get down to maybe 30 or 40. So our first port of call was to reach out to the County Recorders Network. We asked several questions to get a comprehensive sense check on this list and to get it prioritised a bit. As I said, we are really grateful for that help. I know we have many county recorders in the room at the moment. We definitely couldn't have got to where we are without your help. So I don't think I can thank you enough. I might squeeze in one more before the end of the presentation. That was really useful. That information helped us distill this list a bit more. We got it down to the hundreds, and we then started to identify species as either bespoke or flagship. So that means that they are species that require some quite particular work in order to help them thrive. They're identified as bespoke. And flagship, where they are a good representation of the wider habitat in which they live. And that might be because they're a good indicator of the health of the habitat. It might be because they're commonly associated with the habitat. Or it might be because they're sort of easy to pick out, a good rule of thumb for identifying a habitat or the health of that. We then took these species and grouped them into habitat-based species assemblages. We got 12 different assemblages out of this. So we had farmland, cropland, calcareous grassland, lowland, acid grassland and heath, neutral grassland, chalk streams, rivers and their associated floodplains, my favourite, open and still water bodies, ditches, fences and reedbeds, the urban environment, cemeteries and churchyards, lowland broadleaf and scrub, wood, pasture parkland, vegetable trees and orchards, and mixed woodland plantations. So these are the 12 categories of habitat that we've used for the LRS. And there are some odd ones on there. You might wonder why we categorise some of it like this. We had a very long list of habitats, and there are many different ways you can kind of cut this. But effectively, it was because these made sense based on the species we were looking at and based on the recovery actions we thought could be taken or implemented in order to help these species. I won't go into any more detail on that now. If you want to talk more about that, feel free to email me, catch me in the break. So, since then, we have been working on actually developing the strategic priorities and the measures. That's actually come along very quickly. It's not a simple piece of work, but it's fallen into place nicely, partly because we have great existing resources in Hertfordshire, as I mentioned. We already have some existing biodiversity strategies and many other strategies, and partly because we had a lot of help from county recorders and wider environmental groups as well. So this allowed us to develop draft priorities and measures fairly simply. They are draft, they need working and they need reworking, but we almost have a set of them, and once they are complete we will start mapping them. So effectively we will, for any given action that you can take to help nature recover, you will be able to see it on a map where you can best deliver that. That work will be done from now up to Christmas and just into New Year, as I said, and then we should have something to show. So, bit of a white elephant in the room, this one. Funding the local nature recovery strategy. This is a question that everybody excited about actually doing something, I think, wants to know about. How much money are we going to do this? So, my role at the County Council has been funded through central government funding. It's funded myself, it's funded many of the activities we've been able to run as a partnership, and a lot of the work to effectively set up this strategy. However, that is limited and it will come to an end in April. Central government are currently looking at providing additional funding for the local nature recovery strategy. We don't know a lot about it at the moment, it's not even confirmed at the moment. As you can imagine, these things take time, and with the change of government, call something into question. But we are expecting that we will get an announcement of additional funding, and that will be probably in a similar form to how it was before, provided to the County Council to provide to the partnership. It is expected, however, that this will not be funding that will directly fund projects. It will be used to effectively change the partnership from its existing structure into a delivery body. What exactly that means is a question I will get on to in a second. Worth mentioning though, in addition to any funding that comes from central government, there are some funding options out there already or emerging. We have biodiversity net gain. That would probably mean quite a lot to some of you, and maybe not very much to others of you. It is something that's come in just this year, so it is a new, very new funding scheme, and something we are definitely still working the bugs out on. But effectively, it will allow nature recovery projects to be funded through the development of houses, businesses, buildings, etc. We also have the biodiversity duty, so public authorities have an increased biodiversity duty, which means they're obligated to effectively carry out actions and projects to improve the biodiversity of their local area. This we expect will lead to them funding more projects than previously. We also have the Environmental Land Management Scheme, which is a central government funded scheme that supports farmers and land managers to deliver more sustainable farming methods on their land. And some of the actions that we'll be proposing within our priorities and measures are directly taken from actions listed in that scheme. So the actions that you see in the strategy will effectively already have a funding scheme there. And lastly, we've got corporate social responsibility funding, offsetting private investment. This is definitely how central government see this being funded, and by this they mean effectively working with businesses to use the money that they've put aside to offset some of their carbon emissions or support the local area through biodiversity, capturing that funding and putting it into nature recovery projects. So, ongoing. I mentioned a little bit there about how the partnership is sort of changing, and it will change structure to a delivery body once we have a strategy in place. I would love to present a vision for how that will work at the moment, but we don't have an answer. It is one of our two priorities though going forward, post-Christmas really. So we will be looking at the role that the partnership can play in making sure that once we have a strategy, we can actually deliver on these goals, and that will be considering particularly investment, how we can make funding work within the county, and the role that the partnership can play. And also monitoring. So this is really important, and it's easy to overlook. We are required every 3 to 10 years to update the strategy. We don't know the timeline yet, that's why we have a 3 to 10 year range. The central government will advise us when this needs to be updated. In order to effectively do that, though, we need to make sure that we're monitoring our outcomes. We need to know how good we're doing before central government tell us it's time for you to update. And even if central government aren't interested in an update, we want to know how good we're doing so that we can do better effectively. There's no point saying that we want to plant more trees if we have no idea how many trees we're planting, or restore more rivers if we don't know the state of our rivers. So that will be a key task for us in the new year, to start working out how we're going to monitor this and make sure that we are really keeping track of what's happening so that we can push ourselves to do even more. Okay, so the last thing to say is thank you very much for having me. Happy to take some questions. A couple of key links on there. Our webpage, if you want to have a look, you can get updates on there, which you can sign up for to get direct to your inbox. Or you will also see there's a monthly update posted on there throughout production of the local nature recovery strategy. There's also the email address, which goes through to me and my team. And as I said, I have got some lovely leaflets. Please take them with you. They are printed on paper with native wildflower seeds. So once you finish reading them, you can chuck them in your garden and you can do something in nature recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We've probably got time for a couple of questions if anybody's got what you think about that. Mark, just for me, when I'm standing
Sure.
yeah. I'll take the, just stand here and make sure people can hear me. I suspect this might be work in progress, but the mapping tool looks potentially really valuable. Could you just say a little bit about how you think that will be maintained? Because it's one thing to have it sort of in place when you go live, it's another then to maintain and develop it. And secondly, how do it relate to things like the MAGIC database, the Denver database and the like? Is there much overlap?
Yeah, okay, good question. So I'll go to the second one first. How does it relate to MAGIC? It will include some information from there. MAGIC is one of the sources that we've looked at. It will include considerably more information, I think it's fair to say, than MAGIC, because it looks at a broader range of data sets. As I said, we were looking at those 200 that we wanted to filter first. In terms of maintenance, so it will be hosted by the County Council on our webpage. We are committed to looking after that. Funding is still an issue that we need to sort out, but we will be committed to maintaining that. The Hertfordshire Ecological Records Centre are a close partner within the partnership and will be heavily involved in the maintenance of that as well. We have lovely Alex here today, who's been a key player in making sure we've got this far, and the County Council and the Records Centre have a strong relationship we've had for many years to maintain various other existing nature-based data sets. So yeah, we'll work out a way to make sure it's there for the foreseeable future.
So with the local wildlife sites, you said that there were management plans in place for them. I know that that's not the case. So is this included in the network?
Yes, you're right, sorry, I misspoke there. The management plans for the other designated sites, local wildlife sites, are a bit of an odd one. Local wildlife sites, unlike triple SIs and nature reserves, we can identify measures to take place in those areas. Thank you for picking me up on that. Also the same for irreplaceable habitat. I may have said that we have management plans for those. We don't necessarily have management plans for irreplaceable habitat, and we can measure them.
Because it's entirely those areas from which nature recovery is the most important. Those are the core areas from which nature can spread. And indeed, if the nature reserves and all the local wildlife sites are in decent condition, we are fairly well sunk.
A good point to pick up on. Sorry, good question.
following in the thought of the mapping tool, you had various colours highlighted there, but there was no key. Didn't explain what they were about.
Oh yes, that was just a representative picture. So that's, I think that was actually from Magic. I think it might have been, I
It
linked
was
it
our
that.
local area, actually. That's why I saw colours, so I didn't know what they meant.
I'm afraid I can't remember what it's from, because I just took a nice screenshot to show sort of a previs, if you like, what it could look like. That's not representative of any of what we've done yet.
Well, one of your little sentences up there said, OKs must have regard for LNRS.
Yes.
And that's in inverted commas. That sounds a little bit weak. Must have regard for. I'm worried, given pressures in Hertfordshire and Hong County in general, it doesn't. You know, how much regard? Any thoughts?
That's a very good question. So it's in inverted commas because that is the precise language that's used in the regulations that we have so far. That means something to planners, I should say. It doesn't mean anything to me, I'm not a planner. If you want to know precisely what that means, see if you can find a planner answer. But effectively we are waiting for further guidance from central government to flesh out how the planning system and the local nature recovery strategies will integrate. So we are now expecting that to come in sometime in the new year. I've been advised that the County Council and some of the partners involved in the partnership might have the opportunity to review a very early stage of that guidance in the coming weeks. So I'm hoping I'll have more information on that soon. But unfortunately, we're at the whims of central government on what exactly that means.
I think the government's also been consulting on the national policy framework, so I'm sure the answer to which is be aware, but don't necessarily have to do anything definitively, but we'll see what comes up when that's published in the next few weeks. Good. Any other questions? Yeah.
Just one final question, I guess. I'm chairman of the local Hertfordshire Geological Society. Any nature recovery is dependent on what's in the subsurface and the subsoil. You've made reference to chalk streams and chalk grasslands. It's that we could be a potential stakeholder in this, supplying considerable amount of information, given there are geological rig sites, local geological sites, SSSIs, which are of importance across the county. Is there a way that the geology can is being taken into consideration, or should it be?
It absolutely should be. It is being taken into consideration, but it'd be great to chat to you more to find out if you've got something we don't know about, or there's something you can provide that can help. That'd be really interesting.
Excellent. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands, in which case, Mark, thank you very much for coming along. Much appreciated. And thank you very much, sir.
All right.